Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSP Magazine. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
Hello, everybody. This is Marco Ciappelli. Welcome to another episode of the Audio Signals podcast, where, as you know, I repeat that all the time, I reposition the antenna to get news stories and to focus actually not just on the stories, but on the storytellers. So I try to invite a variety of people that tell story in different media. We're talking about musicians, songwriters, actors, writers, of course, and we can tell story in a lot of different ways. And one of my favorites actually through illustration or photography or anything that is visual. And in particular, I have been a big fan of, I think something you can see in the background, a Christmas tree for an episode is a little blurry, but there is a Christmas tree with the peanuts on it. And it's by Garaldi, one of the probably most famous holiday album of all time. And the connection here, it's simple to make. If you're watching, you're already seen it. Justin Thompson is here. He happened to have a lot of lives, but the one that is connected to what I say is the fact that he's a senior artist at the Charles Schultz Creative Associates for the Peanuts. But we're going to just have a cup of coffee here and look into how Justin got into this art, because of course it is an art, and we'll talk about a bunch of other things, all about storytelling. So stay tuned. I spoke enough. I'm going to let Justin come on and introduce himself. Hello, Justin. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Marco. Okay, briefly, I'm Justin Thompson. I am an illustrator right now. I've done a lot of different things, but in this current incarnation, I am an illustrator and a cartoonist. And I, as Marco said, I work for Peanuts up in Santa Rosa, California. We don't. The daily comic strip of Peanuts isn't published anymore. In the newspapers, they publish repeats. But for about 4 or 5 years, we were making comic books with a company called Boom out of New York. And those were news stories based on little stories that were in the strip. So they still were rooted in the strip. So that it still had the feel of Charles Schultz's sensibilities. And I worked on those comics a little bit. I did a little drawing, a lot of inking, a lot of coloring. And that ended. So now I'm a creative consultant on the Snoopy Show, which is the new cartoons that are up on Apple TV. The Snoopy Show, and then we just did a new series with the kids at camp, and Snoopy is the Beagle Scout with the little birds. These are great little cartoons. They're done by a company called Wild Brain up in Canada, and every step of the animation has to be approved by our studio. There are 5 of us that are the creative consultants. I think maybe 5 or 7 of us. And we look at each stage of production and we approve it. We ask for tweaks here and there if something doesn't seem quite Schultz enough. So we're really devoted to keeping Charles Schultz's sensibilities alive, because that strip is really all the dimensions in his personality, all the little stories that he wrote in those 50 years of that comic strip. The people in it, the little kids in it, were people he knew, the voices he heard all day, his internal voices. And that is why it had to stop when he passed away. The family and Charles Schultz made an agreement when, in his last days, that the strip would not go on. There would be no ghostwriter or new person taking it over, as a lot of the old strips have done. Only Schultz could have done that strip. And he's the only one who ever wrote any of the strips, who ever drew any of them. It was all him. He never had a staff.
Well, I'm so glad that you went straight ahead there, because it was one of the main points that I wanted to touch with you. So we will talk about, right? Like how much the connection stays when something become much more corporate, much more commercial, and the never-ending series and sequel even after the creator is not there anymore. But I'm going to put a pause here on that. And
get me back on track, Marco.
And go back on you. So I want to know. I want to know how you ended up there. And I know that when we talked before, exchanged a couple of emails too, and also I'll throw it there. We're both part of the Mentor Project, and Justin has done amazing things there. How did you stumble into become who you are now? But also, you make fun of a few different lives, and I so mirror myself into that, because I feel like I had many jobs in my career.
Yeah, sure.
So let's go there.
I think that's a great thing. I mean, to have many different jobs and learn lots of different things. I have been a cartoonist since I was a little kid. Every kid starts out that way, and some keep going and some stop for whatever reason. When I went into college at Arizona State as an art major, and I really hated it. So I quit after a year and changed my major about 3 or 4 times. Wound up as an acting major, and I did very well there. Brought my GPA up from probably a 2.5 all the way up to a 3.8 by the time I graduated. That was my niche. So I graduated there as an actor, and I got a scholarship to Rutgers in New Jersey, where I got my master's degree now, and then I just hit the boards. I started trying to act in New York, and I went on some tours. I was really good with a sword because I was a fencer at Arizona State. So I did a lot of plays where, there was sword play, which meant a lot of Shakespeare. So I went on a lot of Shakespeare tours around the country. And somehow, by an association, my roommate at the time, he worked at the New York Renaissance Fair in Tuxedo, New York. And he finally convinced me to join in with that. And of all the acting training that I ever had, my first day at that fair as an actor and an improvisational actor, it was like I knew nothing. It was crazy. But you learn the ropes, you learn how to do improv and everything. And I wound up as a storyteller there, my 3rd year there, telling stories to children. So that was a natural progression into storytelling, as an actor. And then I started writing my own stories. And then I started illustrating them. And I published them myself. And then I would read them at Ren fairs, and I even sold them at a booth at the Ren Fair while I was doing stunt work there. Jousting and sword fighting at the Ren Fair all day. So because I did those books, when it was time to move out to California, my wife and I had a son, and so we moved out to the Bay Area here in California because we wanted to raise our kid in the West. I started looking around for jobs. There wasn't much around here. And then I exhausted the very last outlet for jobs, Craigslist, that I hadn't tried that. I tried it. There was the listing for the Schultz job. And they said they were looking for somebody who had done merchandising, who'd worked with properties before. And I did that in New York. I was a graphic designer for about 5 years, designing cartoon characters and licensed characters on bedding and bath products. So that got me in there. And when I showed them the books that I had written and illustrated at the fair, they hired me. So that was what tipped me over. Now, the weird part about the Schultz thing is that I was a Charles Schultz fanatic when I was a little boy in the late 60s. That was everything to me. Those specials, when they came on, I had the paperback books that were reprints of the strips from the early 60s and late 50s. I would have one in my pocket with me as I went to grade school every single day, or there was one in my lunchbox. In 6th grade, my teacher had me draw a mural or paint a mural in his classroom on the back of a bookshelf. And I painted Snoopy and Charlie Brown and Lucy on it. That was in 6th grade. So this Peanuts thing has kind of followed me along, and it feels like it was something bigger than just chance that I would wind up there someday.
Right.
And I've been there 19 and a half years now.
Wow. It makes me think about this is a conversation I recently had with a musician. He's a songwriter, Drew Ryder-Smith, and people can listen to that. It's on the podcast. Little plug here for myself. But we talked about being able to be a chameleon, and I'm connecting this with you, but still being in the realm of your interest, your main focus. So in the music industry, of course, we talk about writing song, playing music, work in a record studio, be a sound engineer, and all of that. And as you're telling me your story, yes, you had different life, but they were all gravitating around that artistic and storyteller, and of course, your passion for the Peanuts.
Yeah,
it's the cherry on top.
I knew I couldn't really be in a cubicle and do office work and things like that, not out of any arrogance of saying that's not for me, I'm too good for it. That wasn't it at all. It was just that I knew that I wasn't smart enough for that stuff. Well, I shouldn't shortchange it. I could have pulled it off. I did some temp work when I was an actor, so I did work in some big office buildings in New York, but I felt small there because I didn't feel like I belonged. I felt like, any minute now I'm going to screw up and I'm going to do something terrible, because I just didn't get that world, so that's all on me. There's nothing wrong with that world. It's just that my brain and my aptitude feels completely inept in those situations.
Yep.
Whenever I'm around the arts, I'm relaxed. I can think better. I have ideas. That's where I need to be. So yeah, I just flew around in that planet for most of my life.
That's super cool. I love it. And again, I kind of see myself into that, even if I choose certain different routes, but it's, advertising, branding, but I've always been having my own thing, right?
Yeah.
I had very, very short amount of time where I was sitting in an office. And again, there's some people that thrive, they do amazing, they love what they do, the teamwork. I mean, they actually more like a hierarchy or whatever it is, yeah, I feel you. Let's talk a little bit more. Let's go back to now that we heard a little bit about you, to Charles Schultz and how he was embedded with his life literally in this. So what happened when, as you say, somebody unfortunately pass or retire, and somebody sits there and say, can we keep going with this? Is it going to be, I don't know. I think Disney, I'm a big Disney fan. So how do you bring Disney when Disney's not there? And
that's an easy answer.
Go for it.
Any Disney product has many, many hands in its creation. Whether it's Disneyland or whether it's the movies, whether it was comic strips, there were lots of people who were Disney.
Right.
There was only one man who did Schultz. One guy.
Yep.
That's the difference. And when I was going to Japan a lot, I went there every year from about 2005 to 2017 or 2018. I was kind of one of the studio liaisons to Japan, and I would meet with the licensees over there, and a lot of businessmen over there, and their art teams, and it was very difficult for the first few years for them to get the concept. No, you can't just grab an arm from this pose and put it over on this pose to make Snoopy look like he's holding a sign up. It looks wrong because Schultz had a particular way of drawing his characters. They were perfectly balanced all the time. And one little thing would just tip it. And Schultz's characters are incredibly difficult to draw. Anybody will tell you that. And that's pretty much my job, to try to mock his style. And I do a lot of artwork that's supplemental art that we couldn't find in the strip or source material, so I'll have to create it based on that and make it look like it. I do that every once in a while. But we always try to use Schultz's work if we can. But every once in a while, great. But it's incredibly difficult to do. And so when they would be shifting around, I called it Frankensteining, when they take body parts from other poses and put it together to make one pose. It never worked. And so I told them, you cannot do this. You can't do this. And I gradually got them to understand the magic of Schultz's work. And then they started thriving. And we are so big in Japan. It's unbelievable. We're like the number 3 license in Japan. When I left, we were number 2. I'm not sure if we still are, but we were bigger than Disney in around 2016 or 2017 or so. So getting that sensibility across to the businessman and how important Schultz's drawings are and how difficult they are and have to be treated with care. That's a lot of what we do at the studio. You know? How about, sorry to interrupt you, but how about the cultural, because you bring in Japan, I've been there, love the culture there, and I see a lot of Snoopy and Hello Kitty, a few others, and they have a certain way. Their character are very, I don't know, simple, very kid-like, but they do advertising with kid-like character for important thing, insurance company. They have 10 poses of Hello Kitty. You can take an arm from one and pop it onto another one, and it won't look different because of the simplicity.
It's a little bit more of a doll in a way. Not in a negative way, but like you can take the arm, you can place it, and
it's
change
very
the
simple.
position,
And that and the simplicity breeds the kawaii, or the cuteness factor of their merchandising. And I'm not really sure what they see in Snoopy and Woodstock, because most of it's about that for them. They like the kids in the strip, but most of it's about Snoopy. Maybe they see that as simple. Snoopy is incredibly complex for as an artist to try to draw. It's very difficult. But maybe that's it. Maybe they see it as a very simple and beautiful property. I don't know, but it's a very different aesthetic over there.
How about the message though? Because I was also gonna go there. Like, okay, so Schultz took the society was living in. He brought Franklin, black kids during the civil rights movement, and he did important things. I mean, this is my impression. I didn't study the sociology of the Peanuts, but for me, he empowered a lot, even the women. I mean, Lucy and all the other girls. They're strong character from my perspective. And so he was reflecting the society of the time very well. He was helping it, maybe also making statement. And then you take this, and does it water down when you bring it to another country? Where how do you translate the culture? That's my question.
Well, it doesn't always translate. It doesn't. And when I say Peanuts is the biggest property over there, like I said, it's mostly just about Snoopy and the poses we can do with Snoopy and how they can get Snoopy's little body and face on as many things as they can. They're charmed by it. Deeply, deeply charmed by Snoopy. And some of it might be that he does these personas and things, but it doesn't get as deep as it does here. You know, they don't quite understand a lot of the things that the Peanuts kids do everyday life, but they like it because it's American.
Yes.
A lot of times we'll get lettering on merchandise that doesn't make a whole lot. I mean, it says something, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense in the context of the illustration that they used on the product, let's say a t-shirt. But they just like the lettering because it's American or English, you know? So there's a lot of that. A lot of people here think Japanese culture is really cool with the manga and the pop culture and all that. Very attracted to the. It's the same way the other way around. You know, they see Peanuts as inherently American, and I think there's a lot of the attraction for that too. But as far as the stories go, it doesn't mean that much to them, I don't think.
Yeah. Can you think about other strips or cartoonists that are kind of in the same realm of Schultz in terms of the sociological aspect and the character that grow and reflect maybe adulthood, but they're kids? I mean, Calvin and Hobbes, I'm just throwing that there. I don't know how you feel about
Calvin
that.
and Hobbes was greatly influenced by Peanuts. I think people don't credit that as much as they should, I think. Ellie,
but if you think about it, it is, right? I mean, there is the
totally
relationship. It's the
absolutely. And
right?
Calvin wears Linus's shirt. He probably brought them at the same place. But it's not like he's copying Peanuts, but you can see the influence there, you know? He wound up making it this beautiful comic strip with his own singular voice. I'm not sure how much social relevance came in there, but it didn't need to. It was more striking at the heart. And there's a comic strip by Patrick McDonnell called Mutts that really pounds at the heart sometimes. Sometimes it's cute, sometimes it's charming, sometimes it's sad, and then sometimes it's funny. But I love that you have creators out there and editors who allow these creators to get so human, to play that range of emotions, you know. And a lot of cartoonists, maybe they're timid, or they don't want to go there. I can't imagine Garfield getting very touching, you know. But for a time in the 80s, Bloom County really hit the nail on the head. It had a lot of socio-political themes in it, but it was a very charming setting with kids and a couple of talking animals. You know, it spoke to the time of the 80s, you know, maybe even into the 90s. I'm not sure how long it ran, but that was a pretty good, pretty strong strip that really got a fantastic following.
So talking about the kids, a lot of people, as they say in creative environment, you grow up, you forget you were a kid, and you don't want to watch cartoon anymore. You don't want to read comics, or that's for kids. Like, I don't care. I go for that stuff. I watch every single movie and all of that. But my question is, how hard is to take the responsibility to educate kids and give them a moral by sharing the story? And I think I'm coming more into your present role as educator or mentor. So, I mean, I feel like it's extremely important in our society storytelling, fairy tale, even in the Grimm brothers, they've always been like, okay, maybe they were not cute, but that's how you teach lessons to kids. The moral: don't get lost in the wood, don't do this, don't do that. There is a bad wolf out there. So
there are some cartoons out there that are good about that. I remember I was raising my kids. They're 18 and 21 now, but when they were kids, there were some cartoons that we found that had some good moral lessons, but that's very hard to do anymore, it seems like. The country's so damn polarized, and there's so much anger that people are afraid to teach any good moral lessons anymore. Someone's going to write a letter. Someone's going to shout about it on a news channel or something. I feel like a lot of it's been backed off, and that's not really a part of our culture anymore, to instruct children morally. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm just not tuned into it, but I don't see it that much anymore. A lot of the things that are aimed at kids, it's just, it's fun. A lot of graphic novels now coming up, and I'm not going to talk much about that because I don't know much about it, but I know that there are a lot of people, a lot of my friends and colleagues that I've met are doing very well with graphic novels to kids. And I don't know if they have strong moral lessons in them or not. I know they're talking directly to middle school kids. That's their target. But I'm not really sure about the content. I don't read them, so I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Well, my feeling.
It used to be.
Yeah. I mean, my feeling of that is that, that's what kids can learn, and people can learn even by watching it, an entertainment TV show. But whatever happens there, you kind of reflect in what you see, what you hear, and so I think it's important. But apart from that, also maybe do choose a career, maybe in what you do, right? In being an illustrator, and I don't want to go in generative AI unless you want to.
What?
Generative AI and artificial
my God.
intelligence in creating that. So I don't want to open that can if you don't want to. If you want, but feel free, or will you come back? But my question here is more like, how important is, I mean, you said since a kid you've been doing that. And I heard many stories of illustrators that like, that's what I used to do as a kid. Either it was going to be a professional or not. That was my passion. So do you see this still alive in our digital computerized society, taking a pencil and drawing?
Yeah, both of my kids were very creative, and they both love to draw and paint. And the tools I use, are Adobe products, and they're on the computer. I even draw on a computer screen. But for me, that's very far from AI. I'm using these programs as tools to create, but I'm still using my hands and my mind. It's still coming from my heart. It's still human. It's not making fun of humans, which is what AI does. And I'm greatly offended by AI having anything at all to do with the arts. It's like, stay in your lane, robot. Because now AI is fantastic. It can get us to the stars. It can get us to planets. It can elevate our lives. I'm sure it's going to be able to work out rails. We're going to have, I don't know. I mean, transportation, fuel. It's going to help better our lives in all these ways. But why is it messing around with the arts? It's now in just about every art form, including writing. And boy, that's really a big insult to me, because those are the expressions of the human soul. That is not working out a timesheet, which would be great for AI. Work out how to distribute things in an estate sale or something like that. That's fine. But when an individual's expression is not being looked at as much as an AI creation, I think that we're in big trouble there. And I don't know why these guys do this with AI within the arts. What are you doing? Why? And I think it boils down to a lack of respect for the arts that's always been inherent in the people who don't do that kind of thing.
Yeah. So you see art as a more artisanal endeavor, right? I'm from Florence, Italy, so I'm thinking the Renaissance. I'm thinking sculpting. I'm thinking painting and getting dirty. You do that too. And I agree with you. I mean, I love AI. I talk about it. I talk about the future of it. And I use it sometimes I'm not an illustrator, so I'm more of a writer. So if I want to illustrate something I write, it's easy to say, hey, Jolly, design this for me. But it's never perfect. It's never inspiring, to be honest with you. And it's also, but I think that, to go back to the labor with your hands, you said you draw on a computer, but you're still using your hands.
Yeah, so it's still channeling an expression of an idea that I had, or something that it's the same thing as if something hurt me and I wanted to write a poem about it, and I type it into the computer. That's still from my heart into my hand onto
You're
that.
still pouring that in a human way. Yeah.
Right.
So I'm thinking, even if AI is not going to go back, and I don't want this to become a conversation about AI, but let's go back to the storytelling.
Yeah.
I don't like that people think that now I can go to the artificial intelligence, say, write a good story. The hell is a good story, right? And the easy button, and it's crap. Garbage in, garbage out. That's for sure. Yeah. So how do we try to keep, in your opinion, this love for kids to experiment with their hands? Because there's a side of me that think that is innate in us. It's a human treat to play with your hands as a kid. Mm-hmm. And I don't want us to lose that. I don't want art school to become, here's your computer, do everything here. I think you still need to do it with your hands. What's your
it's funny. My youngest is is taking a pottery class right now. In
love
their
it.
first semester in college, and they'd never worked with clay before, and Tara's always really clean. They never really wanted to have any dirt or anything in it. But man, oh man, every weekend I see Tara and they say, "Oh, you got to see what I created. I made this so-and-so mug, or I made a bowl, or whatever." It's so, and you really like this, huh? And they're like, "Oh my God, it is so much fun." We can't lose that in schools.
Yeah,
we cannot lose that at all. Any kind of arts where the kids are using charcoal or pastels or pencils or clay or whatever like that. Like you said, they got to get their hands in it first. It's a big experience growing up to have that little corner of the brain filled.
Yeah, and then maybe bring that to the digital form as a medium, but you're still just using a medium. You're not using a thinking elements to it, right? Is a tool.
It's just a tool, just like you'd use a pickaxe to dig in for gold in a mine. You don't use your hands there, but because that tool is going to get into the dirt or the wall quicker and get your gold quicker. Just like when I create a comic strip on my my electric tablet and I'm drawing on the screen and creating it, it just goes faster than when I'm having to do it with my hand on paper, and I can correct mistakes much easier on the computer screen, Command Z, if I get a line wrong, you go boom. Yep. I don't have to erase. So it takes it makes things go a lot quicker, and I'm not using up a bunch of paper, so I'm saving trees.
Right. It's how you interact with it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's important for any kind of technology, to teach kids to use it, but still retain the humanity. Yeah. So let's go towards the end here with looking into not only the many life that you had, but to bring the focus back on you, but your next step in life, or what you're doing now and what you're envisioning to do maybe in the future or more. What's your next adventure?
Yeah, I just started with the Mentor Project. I just started teaching an art program or cartooning program that I created. And I taught, it's in a small town in rural Tanzania. I went there for a week and taught my program to middle school kids. It went really well, and they were very engaged. And we kept the thing going. I'd get on a Zoom once a month. They'd all crowd around the computer, and I'd get the whiteboard out on the Zoom and I'd draw a lesson for them, something to work out. And then each week I would send in to our liaison over there a lesson plan. And they just completed their semester, so they all got a certificate and everything. And I'm going to teach that cartooning program for a week in January at the Charles Schultz Museum, which is right next to the studio in Santa Rosa. It's for kids. And so I've got this program, this art program that I'm working up, and it's got a specific theme to it. It's a little different, and I'm going to further refine it. The more classes I teach, I'm going to, pin it down and work it out and see where I can go with it. But it's been incredibly rewarding for these kids that they don't get to work on art out there in Tanzania. There's some art there in the town. Not a whole lot though, but they are aware of cartoon characters and stuff somehow. I mean, I think some of them have TV and they can watch TV there. Mm-hmm. And as I asked them, do you know Mickey Mouse? Do you know Snoopy? And yeah, some of them, they know some of those things. But they were all very, very excited to learn. And we had to pick about 12 or 15 kids out of all of them who raised their hand and wanted to take the program. They had to write a reason why. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to teach 2 classes in June. I'm going to go back out there this summer and teach for 2 weeks, maybe get 2 classes a day going. I don't know. We'll see where it goes. But I'm going to keep doing it, and hopefully they'll send me to different places of the world, underserved areas of the world, where I can bring this strange avenue of art to them, and they can express themselves through that.
It's super cool. And again, I'm going to bring a positive thing to technology again, which is it allows you to keep this going even when you're not there, and keep the fire going. But again, it's that tool, is that medium, is not the final goal, right? One last question, because there's always this debate about being a natural born artist and good at something, a musician. Oh, he's born with a gift of music, or he's born with a gift of illustrating and drawing. And so, in your opinion, how much is the learning aspect and how much is the being natural or something? And I came with this question when you were telling me about these kids that maybe they never really took a class about art. Have you seen somebody more of, oh wow, this kid is a natural? And
exactly, I have seen that. You can kind of tell.
Yeah.
And some of it is the attention. They see something in their head and they want to get it down onto paper. There's a drive there. And other kids, they see what they want to do, but they're very tense and they're trying to draw it. It doesn't flow naturally. They're still going to get there if they keep working, just as much as the kid who's a natural at it. And maybe when they're in their 30s, people aren't going to be able to tell the difference which one was the natural when they were 12. I don't know. It's a rougher road for some of them than others.
Yeah, makes sense. And it happens, I think, in other form of arts too. The kids can grab a guitar and kind of like, okay, I can hear what I want to play and find the right notes naturally. Other are going to have to study maybe a little harder. Well, I really enjoyed this, Justin. I can't believe it took us so long to get it going, but I'm glad we did. We talked about a cup of coffee. It's a subject that I really love, and I know you're passionate about it. You can tell from the way you talk about it. So, open invitation here to come back anytime that you want to share a story about arts and about the things that you do.
Yeah, I would love to come on again and talk about how I create a story within my comic strip, because I've done that a few times.
I would love.
It take months to get through them, and they're very big stories.
Books. I mean, I'm gonna book you already. You're in. Let's do it.
I do have my own comic strip that I've been doing.
Oh my God!
I've been doing it for about 18 years. Yeah.
You know what? I am my own boss on the podcast, so let's talk a couple of minutes about that if you have time. It's easier for the next conversation. How about that?
Yeah, it's called Myth Tickle. It's kind of like saying mystical with a lisp, but really it's two words: myth as in mythology, and tickle as in something makes you funny. So you put it together, Myth Tickle, and it's on Go Comics. They're the syndicate that syndicates it, and you go to gocomics.com/mythtickle. You can see it there, and it's characters from mythology and legend all kind of put together, but they're young. They're like kids. They're kind of trying to learn how to be better deities, I suppose. And it's, humorous little strip. But occasionally, every few years, I'll have some grand storyline that spans a few months, where they'll go into some like Asgard, or they'll go into Duat, the Egyptian underworld, and have an adventure. It's all mythology based, and we're very well researched, because my readers, they know more about it than I do. And if I make a mistake, I hear about it. So I got to be on my toes with that. But,
you mentioned that you love mythology a while back, I think. Okay. Yeah, wow. This is an entire episode, because I can totally see these little Thor and Zeus and Venus or whatever going on adventure together.
I do have Thor and Venus, and there's a little Japanese girl named Karma in it. The main characters are a dragon and a knight, and Anansi, and I have an African creatrix goddess named Ziva, and they pop up everywhere, wherever the joke would be best said by this character, whatever. I just decide all that. And if you go there today, there's kind of a holiday card there featuring the universal monsters, like Frankenstein, Dracula, and Igor and stuff. Little Christmas card thing there. So go check that out.
Cool. I'll be sure to do so. And I'll put the links, all these links that just share it with me, and I'm going to put it on the notes. Okay. So on this podcast, people can go check it out. And absolutely, I want to dig into your brain on how you go from an idea to the story, plot, and actually the illustration. That would be really fun. And I think at the core of storytelling for what the core of this podcast is. So
great.
We'll see you again soon. For everybody else, subscribe to the show so you will know when the next with Justin come up and all the other storytellers that I have on the show. Justin, this was real fun. I'm looking forward to do it again.
I'd love to do it again.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you learned something new and this story made you think, then share ITSPmagazine with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our columns. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.